I've got one word for you: Tom Cruise. On this new weekly podcast, Meeting Tom Cruise, we're going to talk about Tom Cruise.
Everyone who's met him has an amazing story to tell.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeff Meacham from TV's Blackish.
I'm Joel Johnstone from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
We are inspired by Tom Cruise.
But we've never actually met Tom Cruise.
But after we talk to some people who have, maybe we finally will. It's not impossible.
Listen to Meeting Tom Cruise on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Brain Stuff, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, Brain Stuff, Lauren Vogelbaum here. By now, in this coronavirus pandemic, we should all be able to agree about the importance of wearing masks. Way back at the beginning, a year or so ago, the word wasn't so clear. As researchers and scientists wrestled with new data surrounding this novel virus, what the experts were saying about masks may have been a little confusing, especially as they were trying to reserve the limited supply of medical-grade masks for medical professionals on the front lines until more could be made. But it's 2021 now. More than 100 million people have been stricken by COVID-19, the disease that springs from this coronavirus infection. More than 2.2 million have died. The world's scientists now have enough data, enough proof to definitively state masks work. We spoke with Mary Beth Sexton, a professor in the Emory University School of Medicine's Division of Infectious Disease. She said, as frustrating as it is when you're in the community and you're getting information and it changes, this has actually been a great example of how science is supposed to work. You go with the best knowledge you have at the time, and as soon as you know something different, you let people know, you explain it, you change. And that's what has happened here. Now, as the virus mutates into different variants, masks are as critical as ever. And some people are suggesting doubling up. That's right, wearing 2 masks to keep everyone safe and get this pandemic under control. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the longtime director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said in a White House news briefing on February 3rd of 2021, "There's nothing wrong with people wearing 2 masks. I often myself wear 2 masks. Can we make a general recommendation that has scientific basis yet? No. But when the science comes along and tells us that it's better or not, then you will see a recommendation being made by the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention." But let's back up a step. Why do masks work in the first place? The severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, or SARS-CoV-2, travels through the air. We need masks as one measure among many to keep it from spreading. Here are 3 examples of how mask usage has helped curb the virus's transmission in real life. Service members who wore masks on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, which experienced a COVID outbreak on board in March of 2020, were some 25% less likely to be infected than those who did not. A study of 131 clients in a Missouri health salon showed that none were infected by 2 stylists who had COVID-19. Both workers wore masks, as did every one of the clients. And during a surge in Arizona in the summer of 2020, a statewide mask-wearing mandate, along with limits on large gatherings and more attention to social distancing, helped to stabilize transmission rates, which then decreased by some 75% as the summer wore on. According to the CDC, control of the virus through masking works in 2 fairly obvious ways. First, a mask stops those who have the virus from spreading it. Second, masks keep those without the virus from being infected. As the CDC website puts it, the relationship between source control and personal protection is likely complementary and possibly synergistic, so that individual benefit increases with increasing community mask use. Physically speaking, though, how does a mask stop the wily and extremely tiny virus? It's all about getting in the way. Sexton explained, even though the virus itself is incredibly small, the virus doesn't travel by itself. If you were infected with COVID and you put the virus out into the environment, it's contained within these respiratory particles. There's a mix of what people call droplets and aerosols. Aerosols are a little smaller, but even an aerosol is so much bigger than the virus itself. Think of those particles that show up in slow-mo pictures of a cough or a sneeze, or even just talking, or the way that you can see your breath in the air on a cold day. If you were infected with COVID, every one of those particles could contain millions of COVID viruses. A mask helps trap those particles coming and going. A January 2021 article in the medical journal Cell explained filtering is not sieving out things that are too large to pass through holes in the material. Rather, air must curve as it flows around individual, tightly packed fibers of the material, like a race car swerving around cones of an obstacle course. As the air curves, the aerosols that it carries can't make the sharp bends, and therefore slams into the fibers, or they become too close to the fibers and stick to them. The type of mask, of course, is important, as is how it's worn. The CDC recommends a mask that has at least 2 layers of washable, breathable material that covers both your nose and your mouth fully, keep that nose in there, and that fits snugly around your face without any gaps. Sexton said, "There's been a lot of conversation about should people wear 2 masks? Should people wear medical-grade masks? What should people do?" And I think that what we can get lost in some of that discussion is that the most important thing is that everyone wears a mask. Some people have already been doubling up in what Fauci calls a common sense approach. But new research from the CDC, published in the agency's February 10, 2021 Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, says that either wearing 2 masks or wearing a properly fitted single mask closely on your face does prevent the spread of COVID-19 more than wearing just one loosely fitted mask. Sexton explained, if having 2 masks on is actually going to make you have your hands on your face more, or if it's uncomfortable and you keep moving it and putting it back on, or if it's falling off your ear or hanging off your ear on a loop, all of those things are counterproductive. If that's happening, you should just focus on one that's of really good quality and fits you well. If you can do 2 in such a way that actually improves the quality or improves the fit, that may make sense. You should also wash or sanitize your hands before putting on your mask, or before doing anything else that requires you to touch your mask or your face. Don't mess with the mask while it's on. Take it off carefully, handling only the ear loops or ties, and fold the outside edges together. That keeps any viruses trapped. Wash it regularly, especially if it's wet when you take it off. Also, wet masks are less effective when they're on, so if yours gets damp, change it out for a spare. And finally, if you're fiddling with it too much while wearing it, it probably doesn't fit you right. Try another one. And remember that as of February 2nd, 2021, masks are required on any form of public transportation and in transportation hubs like train and bus stations. Today's episode was written by John Donovan and produced by Tyler Klang. For more on this and lots of other topics, visit howstuffworks.com. Brainstuff is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
From Wakanda all the way to Kami's Island, it's the Trap Nerds Podcast, baby.
Join us as we debate everything in black nerd culture.
We'll be talking anime, comics, gaming, and more.
It's your almighty Trippy King, Drizzy Dre Popcorn.
Eli, a.k.a. Baku X Baku.
Tony, a.k.a. VX Vash.
And Xavier, a.k.a. Snacks. Listen to the Trap Nerds Podcast every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.